In our last video, we created the sample categorical frequency table. This time we are looking at problem number 2 from an Excel spreadsheet, the grouped frequency table. Our reference page, our sample problem from the textbook, is again on page 54. Our categorical frequency table, I'm scrolling down, and what do you know? The next thing is making a grouped frequency distribution. That is what we're working on. Step 1 says to create a new workbook, but your instructors want you to do all of these tables on the same book. So instead of creating a new workbook, open your original Excel that had your first problem on it, and at the bottom of the page, just start a new worksheet. Click the plus sign, and you see it says Sheet 2. Enter the raw data from example 2.2 in column A. You are going to enter the raw data from the problem you're given. All right, I've gotten all the data filled in to my Excel sheet number 2. I can simply click the Go button. It will take me back to page 54 and then scroll down to my steps again. We've entered our data. The next thing says to enter the upper class boundaries in column B. They did not give us upper class boundaries, but if I click back to example 2.2 and scroll down, they are going to walk us through the process of finding upper class boundaries. So the first thing we need to do is know the high and low value. Well, there's a nice trick in Excel to find the highest and lowest value. Click and highlight, so click and drag all the way to the bottom of your last piece of data. Make sure you're on the Home tab in Excel and go to Sort and Filter. I like to choose smallest to largest. Notice the data is now in order from small to big. So my lowest piece of data is 100 and my highest is 134. And use this information to find the range of my data. The range is the highest minus the lowest. In my case, 134 minus 100. So we have found the range, and we're going to use that range to find the width. Here's the trick. You decide for yourself how many classes you want to have in your table. So there are some guidelines. Notice they say classes are usually between 5 and 20. And they also mention it's a good idea for ease of working things out that if you pick a odd amount of classes. For this example, 7 is a good number. This range isn't very large, so breaking into 7 parts should be nice. For your example, you might want to break it into a different amount, but choose between 7 and 20 classes. Choose between 5 and 20 classes, and probably choose an odd number of classes. So we have chosen 7. Take your range and divide it by the number of classes. How did you find your classes? You chose them. So for mine, 34 divided by 7, I straight take the calculator and say, what is 34 divided 7? And I get this decimal answer. We want classes to be a whole amount. We don't want a decimal amount. So I'm going to write down for my notes 4.857. Squiggly line because that is a rounded. So 4.857. But we do not want classes to be decimals. So I am going to round this number up to the next whole number. In my case, that's 5. And you're going to round it up no matter what. If it's not a whole number when you divide it, you make it the next higher whole number, not normal math rounding. This is our class width is going to be 5. I am simply following the instructions here. Notice they had about 4.9. That was a rounded answer. But we don't even do 4.9. We round it up to the next whole number. Now we're being asked to start the first class. Generally, you just pick the lowest value in your data. You can pick a number lower than it, but I think it's easiest to pick the lowest value. So our lowest value again was 100. So I'm going to make that my beginning of my lowest class. And then that. Add the width to our starting point, and that will get the low limit of the next class. And we're going to keep doing that until we have 7 classes. So 100 plus 5 is 105. 105 plus 5 is 110. 110 plus 5 is 115. 115 plus 5 is 120. 125. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 130. And then 130. So those are our limits, our low limit. Now we need to find the upper. Those are the lower. Now we need to find the uppers. So what we do is we take the lower limit of the next class and subtract 1 to find our upper limit. So I'm going to do a little note over here. The lower limit of the next class, 105, minus 1 whole, that's 104. The lower limit of the next class. So now to do 105, I look at the 110. 110 minus 1 is 109. And I'm going to keep doing that. 115 minus 1 is 114. You see why we made these whole numbers? It's making our math work easier. 120 minus 1 is 119. What was our last piece of data? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 7. I don't need this one. I said I was doing 7 classes. We have found the class limits, but we need the class boundaries. The boundaries are easy enough. For the lower limit, we subtract a 0.5 because we have whole numbers. We would subtract 0.5. For the upper class limit, we would add 0.5. Sorry, boundaries. So we are almost there. This is limits. We're now finding boundaries. So subtract 0.5 for our first one. We have 99.5. And that goes up to 104.5. For our second one, 105 minus 0.5 is 104.5. And our upper is 109.5, 114.5. You might notice that we literally just tack on a 0.5 to the upper boundary. That's what adding does. And then our lower boundary is the upper our lower boundary is the upper boundary of the one before it. So this low boundary is 114.5. This low boundary is 119.5 and 129. So this is our low boundary. This is our upper boundary. For this problem, we needed to find our upper boundaries. So that's what we did right here. Going back then to the Excel step-by-step directions. Found our upper boundaries. And I'm going to click go back to page 54. Enter the upper class boundaries in column B. All that so we could have these right here. Column B, and I just start with 104.5. Double count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. See, because I missed one. This is 119. We've got them now. Now for the easier parts, again, just clicking buttons in Excel. So we've got our upper class boundaries. Now we are going to go to the toolbar and select the Data tab and click Data Analysis. Data tab, Data Analysis. This is the add-on we did work to make sure it was there. So now we're using it. Our next step is to choose histogram and click OK. Our input range is the data just in its list here. So I'm going to make sure I've clicked right in here and click on A1, hold my button down, click on A1, hold that button down all the way to the bottom of my data. And then my bin range, that's my classes. Make sure I'm clicked in there, click and drag. B1 to B7. Since I clicked and drag, it has these little dollar signs. That means it's dynamic. If I were to change what's in there, it would take what's in the cell as opposed to the numbers. So that's a good thing. And make sure the cumulative percentage option is checked. Now we click OK. So it created our frequency distribution. Notice sheet 2 is still down there. This is a new sheet it created, and that was the checkbox where we check new ply worksheet. We can do what we did before, highlight these columns, go to the Home tab, go to Format, and Auto Fit Column Width. We now have our group frequency table.